Since I got that old singer, I've wanted to make myself a poodle skirt. Like the one I made for my friend, you know, this one. But before I do that, I wanted to show you guys the formula and the measurements I'm going to use for me. I'm working in centimeters because that's what I know from where I live, but I'll also write out the inches that I'm using for this process. But the formula looks like this. Your waist measurement, but your waist measurement plus, let's say 3 centimeters or about 1 inch. My waist measurement is 97 centimeters for where I want the skirt to hit, and I'm going to put on those 3 centimeters, so that would be 97 plus 3, which is 100. In inches, my waist would be 38, and then plus 1 inch, which would be 39 inches. So now for the formula, it looks like waist plus my 3 centimeters or 1 inch divided by pi times 2. And for now, we're working with pi being 3.14. So this up here is the formula for figuring out how big our circles are going to be. So my waist measurement was 100, and then I'm going to divide it with 6.28 because that's pi times 2. So 6.28, and this gives me roughly 15.9, and then I'm going to round it up to an even 16. So 16 centimeters is what I'm going to use for the circle around my waist, and 16 centimeters is about 6 inches. So now I have also measured how long I want the skirt, and the skirt is going to be 66 centimeters or 26 inches. So I have now my 16. Now I'm going to figure out the radius of the outer lowest part of the skirt is. So I'm going to say 16 plus 66 because that's how long I want my skirt. And that is 82 centimeters. And this is going to hit me just under my knee. So, these are my measurements that I have to work with, and I know this seems a little bit messed, but the math is sound enough, and I hope you could follow it. So now I'm going to go and show you the fabric that I'm going to use, and then we're going to get to measuring out and cutting and figuring all of that out. And then sewing on my sewing machine that I'm just so in love with it. So I'll see you back here. No, I'll see you back in the living room in just a moment. So now for cutting out, I'm going to measure 16 centimeters from my fold on the fabric right here, and then just mark the fabric. And for the long piece, I'm just going to measure out 85 centimeters, and I am adding on a little bit just because, well, fabric and measurements are not always correct when you do them yourself. So this is for the front piece. Then for the back piece, I'm going to turn the fabric over and do the same thing, but with 2 pieces for the back. I'm going to show you when I get there. So now for the back pieces, I have just laid my front piece on top of my fabric, and I'm just going to cut around and cut up to what I have here. And here is going to be the center front of my skirt, but I have laid it so that I'm sure I can make a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch or so of seam allowance for when I go to sew this up. And I haven't cut out the top circle yet, because I'm going to cut that out all 4 pieces at the same time, because that's just easier. Okay, so for the poodle, I have my stencil that I made for the last poodle skirt, and then I wanted it to be white this time, so I found a bit of white fabric. So I'm just going to fold it out until I have a single layer, all the single layers, sorry. And then I'm going to draw all the way around my poodle, that I can see quite a bit better than you can. And then I'm going to just roughly cut it out. The dog. So now I'm just going to cut it out a little bit more, and then it'll be ready to sew on to the skirt. So I have the skirt laid out here as flat as I can have it. And this is the reason why it has to hang to drop. And I hope it has dropped enough by hanging overnight. So I'm going to cut off what is too long, and then I'm going to sew on the dog that I have right here, about here or so, and then The rest is just turning up the hem of the skirt. And this is the plan. Now to get the sewing machine out and change the thread to a white one, and then sewing around the outline of the stalk that I drew on yesterday. So now for the stalk, I do not have a zigzag stitch on my machine, so I'm going to have to sew all around it by hand. So now it's time for the last part, which is sewing on the yarn for the whatchamacallit, and it's going to look like this. And I'm just going to mark down where the line goes by now, because I really like how it lays here on the dog.